Best angle to get. Yes. My collar is not like a regular shirt. Test 1, 2, 3. That would do the trick, I think. Got it. I'll do that. I don't want to spoil the video. I just want to test some audio. I'm not gonna play. I just want to see if it. Make sure we even have audio in the first place, which we do not. So, oh, was it muted? Oh, okay.
If told to do.
Okay, perfect. That was. Do have a question though. So we have some juveniles in the room. So I got a lot of stuff in my pockets. There we go. Well, we're on schedule. So the only question that I have before we get started, before I introduce myself, is we do have some juveniles in the room, so which leads me to be inclined to skip the first video that I have. Initially, when we set this up, I asked that question because the video, although it is fake and it doesn't have real violence, its violence is depicted in the video because the subject is active attack. So the nature of that. But I don't typically show this to children, if that makes sense. So we can still talk about it, but I'm going to opt to not show the video. Now, I've taught this a lot of times, so I can teach the video, no problem. It just is a nice little summary, and then the presentation kind of drives those points home. So if everyone is good with that, I just want everyone to be aware of that. So if you'd like to see a video another time, let me know. I can get the video over to you. But we'll have a discussion about it instead. Like I said, I'm not in any rush, so when y'all want me to start, I'll start. Okay. All right, well, I'm Officer Mike Delio with the Allen Police Department. I'm with the Community Relations Unit. I've been here for 10 years or so. I was Dallas Fire before that as a firefighter paramedic. I'm attached to the SWAT team as a tactical medic. I was in the training unit before coming to Community Relations for 5 years. And as you can imagine, being in the training unit, I did a lot of training. So I have been teaching this program now since I've come to Community Relations pretty much the entire time. It's not overly complicated by any means. It really isn't. Like I said, that video pretty much teaches you exactly what you need to do pretty quickly in like less than 10 minutes. If you've ever done a fire drill before, hopefully all your kids have done fire drills at the schools. You know, that's pretty standard. It's essentially the same thing, right? We need to know what our exits are, and we're just going for the exits. So what we teach is avoid, deny, defend. There's a run, hide, fight. We don't like that acronym. It means the same thing, but we don't like that acronym because of the hide part. People kind of misconstrue that, and they think that, well, hiding in a cubicle is acceptable. It's not acceptable. So this isn't necessarily just applicable to this facility. So everything that we're going to talk about is applicable to anywhere that you go, anywhere that you're going to eat, parks, you name it. It's applicable to all of it, and just to start looking at things a little bit differently when you're going about your daily routines. So we're going to skip that video. Well, what is an active attack? Now, CRAZE, which is this material through ALERT, which is nationwide curriculum, is civilian response to active shooter events. It's really active attack because it doesn't always have to involve a firearm. It can be an edged weapon, it can be a vehicle, it can be lots of different things. But the acronym wouldn't sound as good, so they still call it CRAZE. So an attempted mass murder. So on this next slide, even if it wasn't successful, it's still going to make the statistic because it was an attempt. So as you'll see here, the yellow is with a firearm, red is with a knife, blue is going to be some sort of vehicle. It'll be smaller if it's less than 4. It'll be a bigger circle if it's greater than 4. We have not sped this up. You're going to see more dots start popping up all over the country. Like I said, we didn't speed this up. It's just unfortunately it starts happening at more of a frequency nationwide. Not many places are immune, meaning it can happen anywhere. And I know your time is a little short, so I condensed this down for you guys to meet the parameters that I was given for tonight's session. So I'm trying to focus on the most important factors, or learning objectives, rather. So this isn't to scare anyone. This is just to drive home why we're having this training in the first place, right? Unfortunately, this is a very real thing that you have to be aware of and be prepared for. So before I get to the next slides, if you had to take a guess, as I said, it's more just to kind of see where people's expectations are. It's because everybody listens to the media. But where would you think the most active attacks happen if someone had to take a guess? Do you think it's outdoors? Do you think it's in schools? Do you think it's at businesses? What do y'all think? Was that? Indoor homes. Okay. That's closer than what most people do. You know, most people say schools because that's what the media tells you constantly. But that's nowhere near correct. Businesses, it's kind of like all-encompassing, but businesses are vast majority. Schools doesn't come anywhere near close to these other locations. Outdoors, I'll point out an event. Outdoors could be anywhere. It could be a park or just anywhere, what we call like an open air situation. The problem with open air is there's no cover. So there's like no cover, there's no concealment. So it's a pretty bad situation. I wouldn't worry too much about this, but what's disturbing is that since I teach it so much, I get to see the updated curriculum. It's becoming more and more that there's no connection. And the reason why I find that personally disturbing is just it seems pretty random then, and it's just random act of violence where there's no connection whatsoever, which makes it even more unpredictable and chaotic. So connection would be, which one of them is going to be an example coming up here, is maybe you're a patron, you patron the bar, or you worked at the location, or you have a family member that somehow is associated with you in relation to that location. There's some sort of connection versus the no connection means like they have nothing to do with anything and they just decide to do it at that particular location. And there's no affiliation whatsoever. They might have a motive, but no relation to that location. They visited it, had nothing to do with it. What's that? Correct. Well, so they are going for not a specific target, but they do have a target, and it's going to be soft locations that are vulnerable. So they'll look and they'll see, not all the time, but they look and they see, and what's a soft target? What that means is no protection, they don't have security, and then the other factor is how many people. So a lot of it, we can go down a rabbit hole as far as social media, and it's just why things are becoming more prevalent. It's easier to get on social media and get noticed for what you're doing. So you want big numbers, you want big targets. You can't really prove that, but I find it kind of, as social media increases, we start to kind of see more and more events happen because people just want to get attention. Like I said, we're not judging. So I'm going to go to a couple things. We're not going to do the Virginia Tech study that I normally do, but we're going to go to a couple locations. And like I said, it's not to judge anyone or like what they did or didn't do. It's just so we can kind of learn from it. That's all it is. So in Santa Barbara, California in 2014, this is an example of that other slide where you can have multiple like modality. So they start off by stabbing multiple people in the residence, then gets a gun, goes on a campus, shoots people, then gets in a vehicle and then runs over people. So, I mean, it's just all over the place. It doesn't have to don't think it's just one sort of weapon. Orlando, Florida, Pulse nightclub, 49 people were killed. The shooter was connected to the nightclub. He frequented the business quite a bit. This is what I was talking about, open air, Las Vegas. This is one of the deadliest, if not the deadliest. It was 59 people were killed. The shooter had a, elevated position, and there's not a whole lot you can do other than a mad scramble, just trying to run as fast as you can everywhere that you can get. This was just a U-Haul. Wounded 15 people, killed people just jumping in a U-Haul in New York and just running people over. Sutherland Springs, one lone gunman killed 26, wounded 20, was dishonorably discharged Air Force veteran, but someone got their firearm, took the fight to them, forced the suspect to flee. And that's another thing that we'll talk about later. We'll talk about the presence of firearms, like potentially within the community. And, if you do something, well, what are the next steps when police show up? Especially with it being Texas. So there's a lot of firearms. All right, so number of deaths. I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but target availability. 3 minutes is like the average response for law enforcement. Here in Allen, it's going to be very quick. See that you have on-site security, so it's even faster. I know a lot of times our officers will work here even faster. It's a very small, like 27 or so square mile radius city, so our response times are very good. However, I'm going to show you a video here in a second. I believe it should be age appropriate. It's just a lot of people screaming. You don't see anything. It's not an active attack. It's just unfortunately, it's a mass casualty event of a fire that just shows 60 seconds. A lot can happen in 60 seconds. So everything that we're going to be talking about right now, it stems from just avoid, deny, defend. So just to kind of quickly break it down to you, because it really is this simple. The first thing we're doing, we're avoiding. So we're just trying to get out through unknown exits. So denying just means we're denying target availability. So that means we're trying to fortify in the location. We don't want to hide. We want to get somewhere where we can fortify if we can avoid. And then when they say defend, that's the term for fight. You're defending your fortified position, hopefully. Or you might skip straight to defend if you never had a position to fortify you couldn't avoid, especially if an attack presents itself right in front of you. You really don't have any other choice but immediately to fight. You're going to have to defend yourself. So there's no other option. So that really is the whole class. But you say, well, why are we here talking about it? Well, if it was that easy, I was going to show you some examples. Everybody would do just that, but people don't. And that's because of human psychology. You don't train for it. You don't script for it. You don't practice for it. So that when it happens, people just kind of freeze. Their OODA loop gets reset and they don't know what to do. So that's what we're doing right now. We're having a conversation about it just so you can start thinking about it and then have your mind made up on what you would do in certain situations. So when that situation happens, you'll do it because you've scripted it in your head. So we go through these 3 stages: denial, deliberation, and then the decisive moment. That's just basic human psychology. We go through that denial phase. No, it's not happening. Then we start trying to figure out, okay, well, what are we supposed to do? And then we'll go ahead and we'll take action on it. So human brain and lizard brain, I don't know if you guys ever heard about, fight or flight when we're in a lot of stress. But typically, you'll lose fine motor skills. You get overwhelmed. Some people in a video, I'm going to show you a video where this mother just kind of gets locked up. So if you're like me, I have 4 kids. I know a lot of you have kids. We know how to take kids in and out of strollers constantly. We've done it like 1,000 times, like we know how to do it. I'm going to show you a video where things go bad and the mother just can't get the kid out of the stroller. It just shows you like what actually happens to people in a true stressful situation. They just kind of break down. So there's going to be a lot going on. This is the video I'm talking about. There's going to be a lot going on, but I want you to focus. There's going to be a mother with her child in a stroller. That's going to be right over here. There are going to be some other interesting things that I'll point out, but that's going to be the main takeaway. So we have an active attack occurring right now. It gets chaotic. It's kind of like everybody for themselves. And she's just struggling. Never successfully does it, just brute force rips the kid out, right? So we know how to do it, but we just freak out and then everything just kind of falls apart. That's just basic human psychology. So you just kind of need to be aware of it and then start trying to mentally train yourself and prepare for it. And we'll talk about in a bit how to do that. So this is probably one of the most important things that we can talk about right now, since I'm not going to show you the Virginia Tech case study. This is not an active attack. This is a fire. And the reason why this is so important is I want you to take notice of all the other points that you could exit. So we have windows that could be an improvised location. I'm sorry, an improvised escape route. That main entrance hall is here. This is where everyone's going to funnel through. That's how they came in. That's how they're going to try to go out. That's going to be their downfall, unfortunately. You have another exit out here, the main bar. You have another exit over here by the kitchen. So that's another thing. When you're going out everywhere, just keep in mind, look how you come in, look at all the different exits, know that, hey, there might be another exit in the kitchen. You should start, not to get you paranoid, but you should start thinking about these things when you're going about your daily routines. Always know every which way that you can go, right? There's a reason why officers also, on top of that, will try to sit away from the windows. We'll try to sit in a position where our back is to the wall where we can see, some people call it people watching, but we're looking at what's happening around us. So we try to put ourselves in an advantageous position because we're already at a disadvantage because we're sitting down and eating, right? So the fire is going to start out here. So to be fair, they thought it was like part of the show. It wasn't, unfortunately. So I'm going to show you a video. If it's too much for your kids, let me, I can hit. But it's just, I can hit next on it, but it's really just a lot of screaming. And this is why we do fire drills. So we started the clock. There's also a reason why we have occupancy codes. This was way over the occupancy. Way too many people are in here. So now it's been a minute. And a minute is not a long time, but as you can see, when bad things are happening, it is a very long time. So you can, I mean, you can easily bleed out in a minute if it's serious enough. So this is representing all the casualties. So unfortunately, there was 31 individuals got stuck right in here. If you've ever been in New York City, and that's where I grew up, and you're on the train, you're kind of stuck in the subways. Once you're in it, you're in it. You're not getting out. Like you're stuck. So they got wedged in here and they just got stuck. There was nowhere for them to go. Look at 18 people. All these people. Remember we talked about the windows right here? All these people. Dance floor. They probably got hit with the smoke and fire and everything. Another 9 right there. It's kind of grouped in there. 3 by the bar. There was an exit right over there. 1 in the kitchen. There's an exit right there. All back here. I mean, no real good excuse. It's why we teach kids, hey, don't hide in the closet and don't hide underneath your bed when there's a fire. We need you to get out of the building so you can get away from the fire. There's kind of really no difference here, right? They needed to get out of the building. Now, if this was an active attack and you found yourself stuck back here, you're looking for windows. Here, there's no windows depicted. So if you got stuck in here, you're trying to fortify this area then, because you don't really have a choice if this is where you're at. You're stuck here if it's an attacker. Different than a fire, but trying to drive home some basic principles. So that's why, you know, even here, I mean, luckily there's like an exit right here. You know, there's exits there. One of the best things I like when I come in somewhere is that, to me, is very simple. As long as there's like 2 exits in a spot, like I'm usually pretty happy. Because if something happens at any one location, at least I have a different direction to go and it's not a choke point. I don't know if you have exterior stairwell. I do see an exit sign over there, up there. So, I mean, worst case scenario, does that lead anywhere over there, or is that just storage? And then that's a stair entrance? So you can get to the stairs somehow through here. So you just got to start thinking about it that way a little bit. Like, okay, if worst case scenario, like I can't get to this exit, I can't get to this exit. Okay, what if I have to go up here, bypass it all the way to get over to that exit? Is that an exterior stairwell? Perfect. Those are the best stairwells. The stairwells that are just kind of internal, a little frustrating, because the exterior one, I mean, boom, you're already outside and you're gone. You're getting moved out away from the scene. So, like I said, not complicated. It's really just knowing where your exits are. And then also knowing if you have any places that really can be fortified if they had to. For instance, like we have exits here, so there's no really reason to think about fortifying this spot. But it really wouldn't be a good option if there were no exits because we have glass everywhere. So those things that I did a consultation for a business several months back, actually more than that, right before the holidays, and they were like on the 3rd floor, and they had all these offices, and there was nowhere for them to go. They had to fortify, but the problem is all their offices were just glass. And the only office where they could fortify, where you couldn't be seen, I mean, you're gonna have to like break the window and then try to jump off, you know, to another landing. So those are the things that just kind of start thinking about. Just want you to look at things a little bit differently because you don't spend all of your time here. You go all sorts of different places, right? So you just kind of look at it a little bit differently. You make a game of it, right? It can be fun, kind of, maybe. So easier said than done on trying to make a calm and collective decision. You know, they say like calm yourself, breathing, shifting your emotion. Easier said than done. Really, it's about being robotic. So, and a lot of that happens from inoculation. So, for instance, like when I was on an ambulance and I had to deal with a lot of medical emergencies, I just became very robotic because I get inoculated to it. And when I saw, you know, I'm dealing with things, I just see it as a problem and I just work it. I don't really see it as anything else other than it's a problem that I'm trying to work. So you kind of have to be that way and be cold, which is easier said than done because it's not like you guys are role playing this every day. You know, it's tough. But what we're doing right now is a form of scripting and practicing. The fact that we're having a conversation right now, hopefully, is a method of practicing because you're maybe thinking about it or we're at least prompting you to think about something that you may have never thought about before. So scripting and practicing, what I'm referring to that is, like you go out to eat and you're like, well, if something was to happen right here and I'm stuck, okay, where would I go? Okay, there's the kitchen. That's where I'm going to go. Or I'm with my kids. Okay, I know I can't run from there. My kids aren't fast enough. I know like maybe I can get over to some cover and then I'm going to have to fight once it gets breached or they get over to my location. All I'm saying is you're coming up with a game plan of what you would do if X, Y, Z would happen. And the reason why that's important, we do that in law enforcement as officers, is every scenario that gets presented to us, we play out all the different ways that it could possibly, what it could be. Good, bad, doesn't matter. So when something happens, we're not surprised. We just do what we already planned that we were going to do. And that seems like, well, how can you be prepared for all situations? And you can't, but trust me, like we role play in our heads a lot, you know, and when we get information, we just assume it's wrong information. And we're just going to look at what's in front of us and we're going to try to analyze it the best we can. But speaking about information, so every single one of you can become a leader in the sense of there's that denial phase. Somebody has to get the ball rolling. Somebody has to do something as far as like, hey, I think there's shots over there. We need to go. So you want to make an attempt to get people to go with you. But the way this curriculum teaches, it is a little bit cold. The curriculum does teach that you're not going to let people slow you down. So if you're trying to get people to go with you and they're just being difficult or they're trying to hide, they want you to just get out of there. Part of the rationalization for that is the more people that stay, it's just going to be more casualties, there's going to be more bodies, it's going to be more for law enforcement and for the fire department to deal with, and you might just get dragged in and sucked into it. Completely different, though, if you're caring for children, obviously, right? Or if you're caring for someone that are medically ill, they can't move. You know, we have this conversation at medical facilities where people are like, well, I have patients. Those aren't things that we can decide for you. Those are things that we just say, hey, you need a script and practice that. And when something bad happens, that's not the time to figure out where you stand on that particular subject or issue, right? Like you need to already have decided that, yes, you're going to stay with them. No, you're not, you know, and your employers can't force you either, right? It's just what you're comfortable with, what you're willing to do. Ideally, you get them out with you is the number one thing. We just want to get out. So this is just a gunshot. Can everyone hear that okay when I hit play? We're going to need to skip it. It's just going to be just loud. They've heard fireworks. I saw some people get startled. So we play this because this is not what fireworks sound like, okay? So we get that all the time, or you hear real gunshots, be like, oh, those are fireworks. Look, if you don't know, just assume it's gunshots then. Like, I'm not telling you to like be freaking out all the time, but just worst case scenario, you're wrong, and then it was just some fireworks and you come back to work, okay? You know, who cares? Versus you don't do anything because you don't know, and then worst case scenario, it could be, well, maybe you might get killed because you didn't leave, all right? And it was gunshots, it was a gunman. So, this is not a good idea. She's very lucky to be alive.
So in the hallway, and here the shots getting closer and closer very quickly. I mean, there was only a few seconds between the first time we heard them and when we actually walked in. To me, it sounded like an axe being taken to a piece of wood. And our teacher, she opened the door and she peered outside and she immediately shut the door and she said, call 911. And right then, he walked in 2 seconds after. There's absolutely no time to think or to duck or to take cover. And people just kind of fell to the floor. And he immediately walked in shooting and he went to the other side of the classroom and he started going down the rows. He went down each row very quickly, very purposefully. And I remember thinking, your turn is coming. You're going to get shot. I mean, I didn't realize there was an active shooter, but I knew something bad was happening. He came back to our classroom 3 times, and on the 3rd time, he killed himself in the front of the class. In between each time he was there, you could just hear people crying and coughing, and the cell phone started ringing. When he was in our class, I remember trying not to breathe very much, so he couldn't tell I was alive. Because as my son was hitting the chair, I was thinking, you know, he can see me breathing, he can see me alive, and that was very scary. I'll never forget.
So, playing dead is a terrible idea. Normally, so that's from Virginia Tech, and normally when I have more time, I show a case study on that. Because if you listen to all the details that she's saying, you find out by looking at the case study, a lot of it is not how she recalls it happening. You know, it said it was fast, there was no time. Well, she was the third room, or her class rather, was the third room that was entered. There was already 2 other rooms prior that had a lot of casualties in it. You know, so that's a lot of gunfire before a gunman ever even went inside of her room. Additionally, he went in there multiple times. She was shot every time he went in there as she was playing dead, and she's lucky that she's alive. She was in she was in the highest casualty room out of all the rooms in the Virginia Tech, which was on the 2nd floor, and it was just a hallway, and you could just pile off into each room. It's a very tight corridor, very easy to get into all the classrooms. So to summarize it, though, because it really is a good educational case study to look at, to learn from, is we talk about target availability, right? What's going to prevent how many casualties? One of them, they had 0 casualties because they laid on the floor and they put their feet against the door. So they couldn't avoid it, so they went into deny, right? So that means they try to fortify, and their method was laying on the floor and putting their feet against the door so he couldn't get the door open. He fired into the classroom multiple times, but he didn't hit anyone. So they denied. So target availability was reduced. There was no casualties in that room. And another room, there was a veteran that was, you know, happened to be a professor. He held and fought at the door. So couldn't avoid, couldn't deny because he didn't have time to try to fortify. So he had to defend, right? So he had to fight, and he fought at the door. That allowed the majority of all his students to get out of the 2nd story window. And that's where we talk about like improvising and knowing what other options are around you. Do you have windows that you can escape from and things like that? So he made the ultimate sacrifice, but he saved a lot of his students by doing that. And that's sort of the expectation that we have of our educators, I would think. Hiding and hoping is not a good idea. So that's not what we're talking about. That's why we don't like the run, hide, fight acronym. We don't like it. We like avoid, deny, defend. That is a terrible idea. You might get lucky, but I wouldn't put all, you know what I mean? You might as well be gambling. You're just putting everything into one, you know, right? All your eggs in one basket and just hoping they don't find you. Not a good idea. So in this deliberation phase, you're just deciding what you're going to do. That's all that is. That's the regular human psychology. I know it seems like it's the same thing over and over again because it's simple, but we really want to drive that point home of like, this is exactly what you need to do. Now, we're just working off of the statistics. So we're not psychic. So I have one example. See if I had left it in here. Yeah. So I'll let it play out, and I'll kind of, we'll talk about this. We'll talk about statistics. But situational awareness. So this was at a school board meeting. So he presents a firearm. So everyone sees the pistol. And look at everyone in the audience. It's like, you know, what are we doing? It's like, what are we? So like I said, it's not judging them, but like, this is what real human behavior looks like. This is what people actually do, you know, which we want you to do what we're teaching, not this. So I believe 2 of them left her, see her creeping in. So she decides she wants to attack. I mean, that's what real violence looks like. You know, everybody has these big ideas in their head, like, oh, I'm gonna do this and karate chop him to the throat, this, that, and that. I'm like, he's a large individual. She's elderly. Try to attack him with a purse. You got to know your own capability, and that's where scripting and practicing is important, right? You need to know these things, know your own capability, so you can come up with somewhat realistic or reasonable plans. So this will come up with statistics. We talked about avoid, deny, defend, and that's what's going to be the greatest possibility of survival. Let's talk about hypothetically that all those people did what we would teach them. which is as soon as he presented a gun and was there, they all just jump him, and they fight him. And they're successful. One or two of them get shot, and they get killed. But at least they took it in their hands. That's how we would teach it. But what actually happened, as you saw, and then no one got shot. Correction, a shot was fired, but no one got shot and no one got injured. That's why I'm saying, like, this curriculum is just to teach you, statistically speaking, what's going to give you the best chance of survival. You know, we're not psychic, but they just put everything into that man's hands. Whether they survived, whether they lived or not, they put completely in his hands. We're not talking about like someone wants your purse, right? Somebody wants your laptop, property, right? We can replace property. We're not talking about this. Like, this is different. Like, this guy basically is presenting that he wants your life. So I bring that up, and not to be like, well, why are you teaching us this if you're saying that might have got like one or two people? I don't know if it would have, right? We're just speculating. We're just talking, having a conversation here. It's just, I find it interesting, and that's what people hope. People hope for, if we comply, nothing will happen. Okay, well, what about all the other times where they comply and everybody gets killed? So I don't know about y'all, but I rather take my chances in my own hands, and if someone is close, then we're gonna fight, and we're gonna fight for survival. So she attempted coming out. That's brave of her, but that also is not what we teach. She already got out. She should get out, and then when it's safe to do so, call 911 so we can come in. But I like to do that, not to get you guys all messed up, but it's part of the scripting and practice. I want you guys to be thinking kind of like outside the box as well. Yes, sir. Suck right there? Yeah, so if someone comes right there, like, I'm not going to leave up the chance. I'm just going to fight. So if nobody else fights with me, I might fight and I might get shot, and then that's it. The thing is, like, nobody knows. That's the problem, right? We don't have a magic, ball where we don't know. But the way we teach it is, we're going to fight. We're not going to sit and just hope they don't shoot us. And that's where situational awareness. It's like people ask me all the time, because I teach combatives. People ask me all the time, well, what if someone puts me in a lateral vascular neck restraint? Now what do I do? And I'm like, well, what about all the things that went wrong leading up to the fact that you got put in LVNR? Like, you should have never got put in LVNR in the first place. It's very difficult to get out of that situation. That's where situational awareness comes in. He should have never been able to just get up like right there where now you're sitting down, and it should never play out that way. So it's one of those things. It's like, it's just a bad situation. Don't necessarily have a right, answer. Normally, it's you see someone come in, or and then you can decide. Typically, when we talk about fighting, let's show you a picture. Is somebody's coming in, you see them, and they're going to be reaching right there, and you're going to be fighting at the door. I mean, it's a bad deal, but I'd rather be fighting in that situation than sitting behind this podium type of deal. It's a real bad deal. So avoid and run. So I'm trying to keep you guys on schedule. So I'll play this back for those that missed it. Gunman enters. Look at this guy. He sees it, situational awareness, he's gone. He's probably still running till this day. So this is what we're looking for, though. You see something, just run. Anybody see some issues here? All right, I mean, there's a door right here. Something going on over there, maybe. There's a ladder right here. I'm telling you, like, people just freak out. So just think about all your avenues for escape. So part of the denying, locking the door, turning the lights out, being quiet and being out of sight, that is going to be helpful. They come by, think nobody's in there, they move on if that's even an option. Barricading, so if the door comes in, right, if it comes into you, that's easier because you can barricade it. The doors that come out, they're a little bit more difficult because you kind of got to improvise a strap. You got to improvise something to try to keep the door from opening. Simple door stops are effective for coming in. You can just do little door stops. There are like aftermarket devices that you can get. Another thing that you can do as well, like for instance, just thinking, and not right here because it's all glass, you guys would run to the exits, but if you find yourself in a different location and you have like a door like that, you can jam the mechanism. You know, you can think outside the box. You can jam the mechanism and it messes the door up. Or little things that you can do to buy time so you can get out, but that's going to be facility specific. Belts. So it's a bad deal because you're kind of like in that fatal funnel, which is not really that good. But I mean, so this we're talking about positioning. So you don't want to be too far that when they breach, you can't get an attack. So you got to stay close enough to the door that you can actually make the attack when they come in. You want to try to fight over the weapon, preferably if you have a deadly weapon on you, then you can use that. There's deadly weapons everywhere. People don't realize it. You know, there's a lot of things that it's not designed to be a weapon, but it's deadly if used as such, right? There's scissors. There's stuff everywhere. That's especially like you go to like medical facilities. There's stuff everywhere. So don't fight fair is what I'm talking about. We don't fight fair. We fight to win because they're coming in. They're trying to win. So we should try to win as well. Grab the gun and we're gonna fight for it. So this isn't just like linear. You know, this isn't like, okay, it flows. You can go from any of these three things at any given moment. So an attacker comes in, he's going to quickly realize that he cannot avoid. He's going to quickly realize that he cannot defend. And then he's going to realize, I'm probably going to have to fight, but I'm in a bad spot. Grabs a bottle that now can be a deadly weapon potentially. And then he sees that things have moved. Now he's going to switch back to avoid. So just because you get stuck on defend or you get stuck on a certain mode doesn't mean that now that's where you stay. If you have the opportunity to get out, you then shift gears and you get out. That's not a good idea. Maybe he had a heart attack, but it didn't look like that. It looked like he went to just play dead. That's a terrible idea. But I really like that video for that purpose. And absolutely what you do matters. But that video is basically this. It's a flow chart. That's all it is a flow chart. It's kind of like a little chess match, but grossly simplified. It's just a flow chart. If you can get out, get out. If you can't, defend. If you can't get out, fortify, deny target availability. If you can't do that, then you're gonna have to fight. If things shift so you're gonna run, avoid, that's what we do. So you gotta be careful with that though. If you bunker down somewhere and you think things are quiet and you don't know, you don't want to then just venture into the unknown. Like if you're going to shift gears and then move back to avoid, you need to be fairly certain that you actually have a viable means of escape without getting shot in the back. And I apologize for running over, but it's a good example. And it's part of a reason why schools train a little bit differently. This is what we teach for the public. Schools do things a little differently. They do lockdowns. They do some weird things. No one really has an answer for schools. They don't either, but it's just the truth. So an active attack happened, 3 stories. It was at a school. All the shooting caused a smoke alarm to go off. Bottom floor knew that it was gunshots because they could hear it. The second floor knew that it was gunshots because they could also hear it. The third floor couldn't hear the gunshots, but they had the fire alarms. So they start exiting like they think they should, and it's just a massacre because they just exit right into a gunman essentially coming down the stairs, and it's a bad deal. That's why I like exterior stairwells. That solves that problem because you're not dumping right into where a potential threat is occurring. It's just getting you outside the building immediately. So those are the kind of things to kind of think about. So don't always just take things at face value. When the police arrive, pretty simple though. It's just follow our commands, show your palms. If we say put your hands on your face, put your hands on your face. Our biggest thing is we don't know who the suspect is potentially. So when do you call 911? You call 911 as soon as you're able to safely get out. You don't call 911 like while you're trying to escape, because then you might unsuccessfully escape and be a casualty. We want you to escape, get out, and then call 911. They're going to ask you for the locations, being the first thing they're going to ask you for. And then if you do know the direction of travel, where the suspect is going, that's great. Most people won't know that. Clothing, right? Physical characteristics, all those things are going to be important. If you happen to know what weapon system it is, highly unlikely, but any detail. But number one is going to be location, and if you know where they're going and how many. Statistically, it's going to be one shooter. It can be two, but overwhelmingly, the statistics show that it's going to be one attacker. So that's basically what you run through with 911. And when police show up, you got to understand that we don't know, anyone could be, the suspect could be embedded within everyone. So you just follow the commands. And then before I forget, it is Texas. If you have a firearm on you and you're running around with your gun trying to eliminate the threat, you do not want us to see your gun. Your gun needs to, I wouldn't have the gun on me, or it needs to be concealed. Don't let law enforcement see you with a gun in an active attack event, because they might think you're the suspect, and it shouldn't happen, but mistakes can be made. So same thing, if you neutralize a threat, and you get their weapon away from them, I wouldn't be holding the suspect's weapon. Get that away from them. Don't have weapons. So you might use a weapon to disable, rightfully so, the suspect, but do not have weapons in your hands, in your possession, on you, anything confusing when law enforcement shows up. Because they're gonna be tunnel vision, just hypersensitive and focused, like looking for weapons, looking for hands, and we just don't want mistakes to happen. So just kind of be mindful of that, because I know there's a lot of people that carry, they have licenses, you don't even need licenses anymore to carry, so just things to think about. Our goal is to stop the killing, stop the dying, and evacuate. What that means is, if when we show up, and we show up very quickly, we're going to eliminate the threat. If we don't eliminate the threat, more casualties happen. So that's our game plan. Stop the dying means that's when we do our medical interventions. All our officers, we have tourniquets on us, we have hemostatic agents, we have chest seals, we have a lot of stuff that I've trained our officers here at the Allen Police Department. They're pretty high speed when you consider the area as far as it comes to tactical police medicine, police tactical medicine. Our fire department now also trains with us, and we do integrated response. They will now go into warm zones. They should never do that before. It was cold zone, meaning when we show up, they weren't going to show up until a secondary search is completed. And what that would mean is, if we showed up here and we eliminated the threat, they would not come in until we have searched every spot in this whole entire facility where a person could fit their body. Once we've done all that, then they would come in. Now they have plates. This is soft, but they have hard plates, they have helmets. They'll come in with us as escorts once we eliminate a threat while it's warm, before secondary has been complete, and they'll start doing medical services at a much, much faster pace than ever before. And now that's pretty much an industry standard now, is to do that. They don't wait outside. We don't wait outside either. One officer shows up, we go in. We don't wait for a second. We don't wait for a third. We're going to be piling in police anyways. That's not what we do. We don't wait. It's what we signed up to do. It's what we do. We're just going to go in. That's how we train. Single officer entries is fairly new. Last several years, it was always usually you waited for a second officer and you went in as a two-person element. That changed years ago, though. They were training before you heard some of the big topics, some of the big unfortunate events that has happened recently in the news, where people not doing their job, essentially. There's no way to sugarcoat it. Way before that ever even happened, the nation was training on solo, single officer entries, meaning you show up, if there's active killing, dying going on, you go in. You don't wait for anybody. You go in and you try to handle business. So I say all that just to kind of give you guys some peace of mind that Allen is right there with what we're supposed to be doing with industry standards here in Allen, Texas. And we fly through that. I went pretty over you guys. I mean, into your question time. I was supposed to be done within like 30 minutes. But it's pretty self-explanatory. You just follow commands. We're never going to send you anywhere blind. He's sending these individuals to like another officer. It's kind of like a safety cordon. So like I said, I condensed it for you guys because I know your schedule. You guys are busy and you're probably worked all day. So I apologize for running a little late. I'm not in any rush. I'm here for you guys. But so if you have any questions, now's your time to answer. I know that was really fast information. Any questions at all? Yes, sir. Like trying to de-escalate? Not when someone is pointing a gun at people. So what we're talking about is they're already going to be firing shots. Let's take that out of it. Let's say someone just comes in and they're holding a weapon in a threatening manner. I would verbally de-escalate in pretty much as subterfuge. I'm trying to de-escalate, but I'm trying to just get an advantage because I don't think they're going to be de-escalated. They've come in with a weapon in that manner. They have a purpose, like they have an idea of what their goal is. So there's some fluke, bizarre stories I've heard. I think one was like in Alaska, I don't remember, where like an officer like de-escalated someone that came in, something like that, or maybe it was just an on-site security. And it's just because I think they didn't even have a gun on them in the first place. I don't know. It's just bizarre to me. Like they're just lucky. Is honestly how I see it, because that's a bad situation. Like that's not the time to be de-escalating. Because like even for us as law enforcement, if someone came in like that, I mean, they're going to be lucky if they even get a verbal command. You know, when we're going to take the shot, we're not going to allow. Cause in a split second, they could shoot all sorts of different innocents. So it's different than if someone walks in and they're trying to mess with. You get people that are trying to push the envelope, so they'll have a rifle slung, and they're not really there to do a mass casualty event or you know a mass murder. Some people they like to be difficult. So they'll walk around, they'll have like a rifle slung, and they walk around. But as soon as that rifle is unslung and it is now being carried in an operational manner, like that's an issue. Like de-escalating is not what I would be doing. I would be trying to run as soon as I saw that individual, would be what I would tell the community. Like you need to run. You need to get everyone out as soon as you see something like that. So, and those people that sling their rifles and walk around, it's happened. Usually it was like when laws were getting changed, you'd see some of them like maybe on the overpass. I mean, if you can always just call us. We've had some people they wander around like a shopping complex. They're just trying to get attention. Really, they're trying to get attention from us is really what they're trying to do. And yes, it does happen even in Allen, Texas. So they're just trying to be difficult. But still, you call 911. Because if you guys call us, it gives us a little bit more to work on potentially. Depends, usually not very much, but it's better than nothing. If you don't call us and we just see it, our hands are kind of tied because it's just a guy walking around with a rifle and it's Texas and you can technically just walk around with a rifle slung, which is so bizarre to me. But anyway, yeah. You got a question? Mm-hmm. Well, they're always going to investigate it. So they're always going to investigate it, but it's self-defense. You don't have to wait for someone to kill someone in order to use deadly force. So for instance, you don't have to use like the least amount. Like for us, we have to use the least amount of reasonable force in order to effect an arrest. It's different versus like someone can kill someone in any given moment, and they have a gun, and you hit him in the head with something really heavy, and he dies. No one's gonna say, well, why didn't you try to wrestle the rifle out of his hands? Why didn't you try to put him in a jiu-jitsu hold and do? No, he had a gun. He came in. His intent is very clear. If you happen to defend yourself and it results in him dying, it's self-defense. You just got to be careful. Like I said, you have those people just walking around with like a rifle slung. That's where you got to look at the law. You can't just go hit that guy in the head now because he has a rifle slung. So you're not allowed on schools, and you can post signs. So, and you can criminally trespass anyone you want. So forget about the laws for a second. If you see someone and you don't like what they're doing, you can criminally trespass them from here. Period. Like, you don't have to tolerate it. Like, that's what people don't understand. People think they can go anywhere they want and like, oh, this is a public place, I can do, it's my right. I'm like, no, you could be criminally trespassed, and if you don't leave, I mean, we'll just arrest you. So don't feel like people can just do whatever they want. You know what I mean? That's not how it works. So call us if there's ever a question, you know, in that regard. But yeah, you can prevent people from coming in. Where it's frustrating when you can is we can't prevent people from coming into like our PD lobby. Like, you can come in, even we post signs, nothing we can do. You can go to like city council meetings, there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, liquor stores, you can't go in liquor stores because they have the signs. Yeah, you just got to make sure that you have, like, I think it's a 30-05, 30-06, and 30-07. There's like 3 of them now. Because they added one the last legislature when they made it like constitutional open carry. They added another number, and it has to be a certain print. It's a pain. It really is. Somebody, yes, sir.
For example, most businesses or any schools, you guys have walkthroughs from the school or business where the response time will be faster. Or I think I was just already how many downloads are there, and then relay certain conditions of those downloads. Is that some practical approach also for these?
So a more educated public, more educated community is a safer community. So we don't advertise that we even do this program because our unit is small, and the concern is that we'd be inundated with all the requests. But if anyone asks, we always say yes, and we come and we do these trainings. We also do security surveys, which soon we're going to be advertising that, although that took a lot of me pushing on my sergeant to get it. But we're going to be advertising that, and I'll be managing that with by scheduling, because we do security surveys as well. We have school resource officers in all the schools. Now, the elementaries, though, it's like a rotation because they come in, they feed in like feeder schools like into the middle schools. So there's more of a presence in the middle schools and your freshman center, and the high school, very large presence. So with elementaries, the goal would be, which I don't see that anytime soon, where you actually, it's not a roaming officer. You actually have an officer in every single elementary. To be honest, I think we're a long ways away from that, but we have them in the bigger schools, like all your middle schools, things like that. Now, like I said, we do the surveys, you know, to kind of talk about response, and then we encourage people to do their own internal training and drills. We don't like to run around and do blanks and do things like that. Now, as far as like identifying people with weapons specifically, well, we can't discriminate necessarily with like mental illnesses and things like that, but you know, we do have a mental health coordinator now that's housed internally at the police department, looks at resources, things like that. There's certain things that you can do with mentally ill to get weapons taken away from them. It's a really touchy kind of subject. It's very rare that it happens. It has happened before. Usually it's with the assistance with family members that are assisting us. Like, we don't go in and just start confiscating people's things, especially also it's Texas. Like, we don't do that. So I know that doesn't completely answer your question, but we do what you're asking. We already do it. It's just not really advertised, if that makes sense. Any other questions? Yes, sir. So we actually have a very large drone program. We have a lot of drones, and we have drone operators that pretty much are always on shift. That helps with like perimeter. So we're not to the point where there's some places, I'm not sure if it's in the United States, but I know there's some locations that have automatic dispatch with drones. They're usually used for like 911 hangups, like very low priority sort of calls that someone's like something really bad is going to happen. You know what I mean? So we send a drone, we kind of see if it's worth an officer showing up. And they can do that with the towers and triangulate and do. So all that stuff is coming. It's just a question of when. But I really think that it's coming down the pipe. You're going to start seeing more technology, more drones and things like that. But just know right now that we have a lot of drones. We use it to find missing people. We use it to set up perimeters. So instead of a helicopter, I mean, we catch a lot of people. They don't want people to know like, oh, stuff happens in Allen because it's one of the safest cities. Yeah, but it's all relative, right? What people don't realize is that it's like, yeah, some stuff still happens in Allen, but it's relative. It's still relatively low compared to other places, but it still happens in Allen because crime happens everywhere. So our drones are awesome in that regard, that we set up perimeters and we catch people that think that they're gone, and we're going to get them. We don't need a helicopter. So, I mean, it actually is amazing. If you have an opportunity to come to one of our events, our drone team likes to come out and like show all their things at all the big community events they go to every chance they get. So come check us out sometime. I'm sure you could see one of our drones and talk to some of our drone operators. Wrap up. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you can always contact him, and he has my contact information. So if you have some questions like, hey, I didn't have time to answer, you can get it over to him. He can forward it over to me, and I can get you an answer. Oh, you're very welcome. I know you said you wanted to, I know I ran kind of over, I'm sorry. You wanted to do a quick walkthrough with some of your staff to look at anything in particular? Okay, no problem. It's not fitting in here. Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Oh, you're very welcome.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة
I think I win.
حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح
Oh, absolutely.
الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
With you guys. So I almost walked away with your mic. So you can always call us. But if you tell them to leave, and they leave.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة وقد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
استووا أقيموا صفوفكم واعتذروا. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. يا أيها النبي قل لأزواجك وبناتك ونساء المؤمنين يدنين عليهن من جلابيبهن ذلك أدنى أن يعرفن فلا يؤذين وكان غفورا رحيما. لئن لم ينته المنافقون والذين في قلوبهم مرض والمرجفون في المدينة لنغرينك بهم ثم لا يجاورونك فيها إلا قليلا ملعونين أينما ثقفوا أخذوا وقتلوا تقتيلا سنة الله في الذين خلوا من قبل ولن تجد لسنة الله تبديلا. يسألك الناس عن الساعة قل إنما علمها عند الله وما يدريك لعل الساعة تكون قريبا إن الله لعن الكافرين وأعد لهم سعيرا خالدين فيها أبدا لا يجدون وليا ولا نصيرا يوم تقلب وجوههم في النار يقولون يا ليتنا أطعنا الله وأطعنا الرسولا وقالوا ربنا إنا أطعنا سادتنا وكبراءنا فأضلونا السبيلا ربنا آتهم ضعفين من العذاب والعنهم لعنا كبيرا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تكونوا كالذين آذوا موسى فبرأه الله مما قالوا وكان عند الله وجيها. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. إنا عرضنا الأمانة على السماوات والأرض والجبال فأبين أن يحملنها وأشفقن منها وحملها الإنسان إنه كان ظلوما جهولا. ليعذب الله المنافقين والمنافقات والمشركين والمشركات ويتوب الله على المؤمنين والمؤمنات وكان الله غفورا رحيما. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.